There is drama in Buffalo with Stephon Diggs. Is this the beginning of the end of the Buffalo Bills? We're going to discuss that and more on a Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. Let's roll, baby.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into a Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Tyler Rowland, local expert for the Locked On Titans podcast, here with my other local expert, Alex Clancy, covering the Cardinals with the Locked On Cardinals podcast. We got a lot to discuss on a Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. There's drama in Buffalo with Stephon Diggs. Where are some of the best remaining free agents like DeAndre Hopkins, Dalvin Cook, and Ezekiel Elliott going to land? And then, of course, Alex's mystery third segment. You don't know. I don't know. We don't know. Let's have fun together. Before we get into all of it, I want to thank you guys for making the Locked On NFL podcast your first listen every day, Monday through Friday, NFL content on all platforms, all apps, YouTube, anywhere that you're listening. You're going to find it every single day, all year round, and always for free. Make sure you get subscribed. Stay subscribed to the Locked On NFL podcast, where it's your team every day. Alex, I got to give you credit here, man. I mean, whether it was last week, the week before, I know within the last two episodes, our everydayers probably remember when it was, but you talked about Josh Allen getting the Madden cover, and we used that as kind of a jumping board into the conversation about the Bills this year. And I mean, you look like Alex Stradamus at this point, basically forecasting that this year would be the demise of the Buffalo Bills as we know them. And this Stephon Diggs drama in Buffalo may be exactly what you were hinting at. I mean, I just want to break down the facts of what we know before I wind you up and let you go here. Diggs came into the facility on Tuesday, but he left before practice and didn't practice. Sean McDermott, the head coach of Buffalo, said he's very concerned about Diggs' absence. They asked Josh Allen. He said maybe there were some issues with organizational communication that could have gone better, and everybody's wondering what's going on. Diggs did come back to practice on Wednesday and practice with the Bills, but what we're getting reports of is it's not a contractual disagreement with Diggs. He's not unhappy about the money. It may be more of a how he's being used within the offense, which really, in my opinion, it just seems like he's just frustrated that they aren't winning and he's looking for things to be upset about. But either way, it's not a money thing. And because the Bills restructured Stephon Diggs' contract earlier this offseason, they basically can't trade him or get rid of him in any way. It's not feasible or logical. So it may just be blood in the water, Alex. What are your thoughts here of this drama coming out with Stephon Diggs?
I mean, here's the thing, is I never said that this would be the demise year. I said that losing the way they did to Kansas City a couple years ago is sometimes just a backbreaker, and it's hard to overcome. They've won. They've been, right. I mean, and with that, like Tyler Rowland of Locked On Titans, they've been maybe consistently the most fun team to watch in the regular season over the last 3 years. Kansas City hasn't played great for a good chunk of a couple seasons. Buffalo has been
they don't care.
Probably the best team in football from start of 2021 to end of 2022. Philly had a great year last year, not so great year the year before. Like Josh Allen has emerged. Like there's everything is lovable about Buffalo. Everything. You all want them to win. It's Buffalo. It's Orchard Park. Best fans, table breaking. Josh Allen coming out of nowhere, seemingly out of Wyoming, even though he was drafted high, but he played like crap his first year and a half. And then it's just emerged. I think this is a direct shot at Ken Dorsey. I think this is a direct shot at what are you doing with my best years? Okay. Yeah. With Josh. And this isn't like, now I don't know if this is wide receiver jealousy for what's happened with Gabe Davis, with them running the ball a lot more effectively with James Cook. I don't know if this is what he signed up for, quote unquote. You can't see my quotes. Like he ate everywhere in Minnesota, and they were a run first offense with Dalvin, with James Cook's brother. And Adam Thielen, another target monster. What I saw, I think it was a playoff game, was Stephon Diggs getting 0 targets in an entire half of football. And I think it was the playoff game this year.
Yep.
And then they threw to him the first 2 out of 3 times in the opening drive. The next, and I think he might have caught a touchdown pass also. But it's like, where is your brain to think that getting Stephon Diggs less than 10 targets a half during a playoff game is the right way to go about things? Like, there's no such thing as a decoy for a wide receiver 1 in playoff football, especially a guy and I'm sorry, I'm going on a rant here. We talk about Devontae Adams getting all the targets. Everybody knows he's getting the ball in Green Bay. He got the ball anyways. Stephon Diggs was like that with Brian Daboll, and he wasn't like that with Ken Dorsey. And I think that's the biggest disconnect that we're seeing. It's like, listen, baby, either use me or figure out how to get me the hell out. Like, I'm not saying he's saying that, but that's right. Slowly but surely, we're starting to see the unraveling. The outside of a hard-boiled egg start to little cracks here and there from a team that's so fun to watch and winning a lot of games, just not being able to put it together.
I agree. And if they lose in the playoffs again, is Diggs going to be even more mad? My thing is, I think you make great points. Diggs is like, hey, get me the ball. We're losing. It's unacceptable for us to lose the way we are and me not get the ball as much as I should be getting it. And I get that. But at the same time, he was unhappy with Kirk Cousins. Now you're with Josh Allen, who is one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the NFL. You go to the playoffs every year. You go to the second round of the playoffs every year. Only one team wins the Super Bowl. So where's Diggs going to go from here? Just go to Kansas City and go with Pat Mahomes? I mean, I just think that, and I'm agreeing with your stance of this could be the beginning of the cracks that lead us away from this group that we know of as the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen, of course, isn't going anywhere, but the next version of the Bills that has a real shot at the Super Bowl could look totally different from the one that we see now, even down from coaching to Stephon Diggs. And I think, like you said, it's just another example of how things may be coming to a natural close with Buffalo, with some of the pieces that they have. Von Miller's getting older. You know what I mean? So
let me ask you this.
I could see this being the beginning.
Do you think this is, and we saw this with Monty Williams in Phoenix. Has Sean McDermott is he not a star coacher? Like, he's elevated the level from destitute, for a long time, and a lot of it was Tom Brady, et cetera, but in Buffalo to now a resounding top 5 favorite every year to come out of the AFC. Has he reached his ceiling of coaching?
I think so. And listen, I don't think it would be the right move to move on from McDermott, but at the end of the day, if you have another playoff disappointment this year, changes have to be made, and it's always easier to change the coach than it is to change the player. Yep. So regardless of I think McDermott is a top 10 coach in the league, but sometimes, like with Monty Williams, I think a top 10 coach in the NBA, but sometimes it's just the time for change. And this may be the year that makes all that happen in Buffalo. And I think we're seeing some of those personalities start to bubble over. But with that being said, we are going to move forward. There are some big name free agents still out on the market. They're taking visits, they're talking, but what would be the best landing spot for guys like DeAndre Hopkins, Dalvin Cook, Ezekiel Elliott? We're going to talk about that in just a moment and finish off the show with Alex's mystery segment. Don't lie, ladies and gentlemen, you are excited as well. But before we get into that, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Look, the NBA Finals may be over, the NHL Finals may be over, but we still got a fantastic Major League Baseball season here for the summer. We got WNBA, and you can get started on some of your NFL bets at FanDuel Sportsbook. And right now, new customers to FanDuel can get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's $2,500 back in bonus bets, even if your first bet doesn't win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is safe, it's secure, it's super easy to use, and they have great promotions every day. There's no better place to bet all your favorite sports action than America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Alex, Are you ready for segment 2?
Rolls on here. Alex Clancy, Tyler Rowland. Follow him at Tic Tac Titans on Twitter. Follow me at Clancy's Corner. Thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen every day. Every dayers, you are why we're here. Thank you.
We love you.
Thank you. Thank you. There are 3 players who are here, but not here, meaning where they were last year. Here, meaning they don't have a team yet, in an effort to find where the next here for them will be. Was that a good enough transition? That was terrible.
I like that.
But there are 3 big names, all of whom are towards the end of the peak years, quote unquote, of their career. Two of which are running backs. One is wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins, and then Dalvin Cook and Ezekiel Elliott. All 3 looking for new homes. All 3 who seem to have some juice in the tank, seemingly. Ezekiel Elliott maybe taking up the rear on that of the 3. But Tyler, let's start with the most recent. Let's start with Dalvin Cook, because Dalvin Cook, this was kind of a surprise to me. This is just a reminder, kids, adults, anybody in between. Just because your favorite player got paid a lot of money by the team you love, all that means is that player is now a trade asset or a cap casualty. That's all that means. So it's not great when your favorite players get paid a lot of money, unless they're wide receivers or quarterbacks, because that makes them expendable. When things don't go well, or if you're going to trim the fat, or if they see a recession coming in Minnesota and want to get ahead of it, this is what happens. So let's start with Dalvin Cook. Couple teams. I know one name you're going to say right off the bat, because it's one of the teams you grew up around and you think it's the easiest. I just know my boy at this point. But why don't you give a couple names of teams you see would be good destinations for Dalvin Cook?
I got to tell you, you may be off on this one. I do have that team as one of the teams we're going to discuss, but not for Dalvin Cook. I think that obviously for Dalvin Cook, Miami is the name. Everyone's on Miami. They've added a million running backs, it feels like, in the last few years, but regardless, that makes sense. Go home. It's where he's from. Play for the Dolphins, explosive offense, all of that. That does make sense. But outside of that, I think a team like Dallas would make a ton of sense. Tony Pollard had a major knee injury, and he may be participating and everything like that, but Tony Pollard is not a bell cow like Zeke is. Tony Pollard isn't just going to be Zeke. They can't use him that often. So you need to split up the carries a little bit in Dallas. And I think Jerry Jones gets a little bored in the summer, and they could look to add, a running back that could be part of a 2-headed package, which I think is the smart way to go in the NFL. And they know that now after their experience with Zeke and Pollard. So Pollard coming off the injury, the Cowboys need for a second running back anyway. I think that he could make a lot of sense in Dallas. And obviously Miami, as we said, and you could talk more about that fit if you want. But I think Dallas is a team that can make some sense for Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, and I think it's Cincinnati. I mean, I think because that's what I was alluding to with you. And it's not just because, that another team that, even though they were maybe one offensive lineman shove for half a second away from Joe Burrow, seeing Jamar Chase down the sideline, burning Jalen Ramsey so close. Ask Dan Marino how tough it is to get back to the Super Bowl. They need to heighten their floor in the running back position. Joe Mixon, while having great games, multiple touchdown games, things like that over his career, he is the dictionary definition of inconsistent. You never draft Joe Mixon in fantasy football. You would draft Giovanni Bernard. For whenever Joe Mixon got hurt, or whenever they needed to change things up, you'd always draft a backup just in case. Samaje Perine more recently. Now, with Dalvin Cook, he's a 3-down back. He's really worked the last 2 years on catching the ball in the backfield, which he wasn't great at coming out of Florida State. Where did he go to college? Dalvin Cook, yeah. So Dalvin Cook would immediately make them the best offense in football. I think just immediately. And I don't think that's even over the Chargers, et cetera. And I think that if with what Joe Burrow seems to potentially be doing soon, not taking the $70 million a year that he could get and maybe make it a little bit more team-friendly so Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and everybody else can get paid, bringing in Dalvin Cook right now with an elevated defense, I think it would be an absolute home run, making them the Super Bowl favorite outside of Patrick Mahomes, because Patrick Mahomes isn't their quarterback. But let's transition into this. Ezekiel Elliott's an interesting one. We've talked a lot about DeAndre Hopkins recently.
Right.
Tell me why Cincinnati is a spot that you think DeAndre Hopkins or Ezekiel Elliott would be best with.
Well, the thing for me is it's all about replacing roles. And last year, Samaje Perine played over Joe Mixon in some high critical situations because he's better in pass protection. He maybe not bounce around a little bit when he gets the ball. He's going to go downhill and just get the yards that's needed. He's definitely better in pass protection. And I think that while Mixon is a very good running back out of the backfield catching the ball, P. Ryan also had that ability as well. And I would say one thing that's been underrated about Ezekiel Elliott throughout his career is his ability to not only pass protect, but catch the ball out of the backfield. Zeke isn't Alvin Kamara out there, but he's shown that he can catch the ball. He's not like Derrick Henry level when it comes to like being out of the backfield and catching the ball. So I think that Ezekiel Elliott could replace Samaje Perine's role. I think that we're at a point in Zeke's career where he's never going to go back to that lead bell cow back. That's the big difference to me between Derrick Henry and Ezekiel Elliott, who I think are very similar as players. Henry's work ethic is going to make his longevity and ability to play that role go longer than Zeke. But I think if Zeke is your number 2 running back and you use him in a proper role, plus Zeke went to Ohio State. A lot of people from Ohio State and in the state of Ohio love Zeke. There's a lot of Bengals fans who are Buckeyes fans. I think he would be Zeke has become a punchline for social media and Twitter running. He's the perfect example of a running back that fell off. All the little things he's done off the field. He's just become a little bit of a joke, honestly. And I think going to a place where the fan base would honestly accept him and appreciate him because of that college nostalgia, I think that would make him feel good. And he has a chance to win, which is a great way to shove it back at people, to win a Super Bowl with the Bengals in Ohio. I just think it makes a lot of sense for Zeke personally. And from a skill set standpoint, he can replace and be a better Samaje Perine, which is what the Bengals are missing right now, in my opinion. So I think Zeke and the Bengals are the best fit.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. There are a couple. So it's going to come down to a couple things for him. Does he want to get paid one more time, or does he want to go in a position where he can make the most impact and potentially win a Super Bowl? And if it's the latter, for me, with him, like, there's one team that stands out above all else, and it's Baltimore. Like, is there a better running back that could fit Baltimore's scheme running between the tackles than Ezekiel Elliott? Like, that's all I see when it comes to Zeke. Welcome back. Final segment. What was up with you guys for the last few minutes? Excuse the technical difficulties. Alex Clancy, Tyler Rowland. We are back. Follow me on Twitter at TicTacTitans. Follow me at Clancy's Corner for all the Tennessee Titans news. You can choke down Monday through Friday, free and available wherever you get your podcasts, and on YouTube for Tyler, and all the Arizona Cardinals news for me, free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. We're going to start a series here, Tyler and I are. He doesn't know about this yet, but this is what we're going to do for the next 6 weeks or 2 months. We're going to do who is the best enter blank position in the NFL. Okay. And I feel like this is a fun exercise, especially now, because you're starting to see this transition out of, the guys who were at the peak starting to get a little bit older and young players starting to emerge. And we'll save quarterback till the end. I don't think I think that's the least fun one, because there's really only a handful.
Obvious.
Like, it's not as fun. I want to start with wide receiver today. Who is the best wide receiver in the NFL as of right now? June 15th, 2023. And this sparked because I got to watch DeAndre Hopkins play the last handful of years. John Hickman and Cody Davis, got to watch him play a lot. Houston for Locked On Texans. And he's starting to get to be that age where it's like, is he a top receiver when healthy, even though he's 30? And it makes me think, who is the best receiver in the NFL as of today? Tyler? Like, this is a tough one because it's like, well, you got to bring quarterback into play. There a guy that, like, there a guy? Go ahead.
Well, what I say that we do here, because we want to talk about situation, but you're starting a team tomorrow.
Yeah.
You are starting a football team. You got to pick one wide receiver. Who are you picking? That's the way I'm looking at it. Who is the first wide receiver?
For the next 5 years or whatever.
All that. Yeah. Screw the contracts and screw surrounding environment and all that, nonsense stuff. Who are you taking? Because that, to me, is where you put your money where your mouth is. What guy are you taking when you build a team? And for me, there is no better wide receiver in the NFL right now than Justin Jefferson. He's the best. The routes, the speed, the playmaking. Also, one thing that I'm always going to factor into my decisions is entertainment. How fun is this guy to watch play football? Because this is an entertainment industry. I think that Justin Jefferson, what a trade for Minnesota. You get rid of Diggs, who's obviously a drama queen, and you just replace him with a guy who's even better than he is. I mean, I wish the Titans could have done that with the A.J. Brown trade. That ain't happening. So either way, I think it's Justin Jefferson. I think he's the complete package in the NFL. He may not have like the breakaway speed of Tyreek Hill, but I think he has, and maybe not like the physicality of like an A.J. Brown, but I think he's the complete package. So I go with Justin Jefferson. But I could be persuaded.
I mean, and when you say starting a team, it makes you look like more of a dynasty route. So you have to take a younger receiver.
No, you're playing 1 year. 1 year.
1 year.
One game. Okay. One game. Think about it like that. One game. That's how I'm thinking about it.
So I'm going to give an honorable mention. I'm going to hedge my bet. Okay. And then I'm going to give mine. And my bet hedger is Davante Adams, because Davante Adams went from a guy, for those that don't remember, I know Packers fans will, when Jordy Nelson tore his ACL in the preseason a handful of years ago, Davante Adams didn't know how to catch a football. The amount of drops that he had with the high volume targets that he got from Aaron Rodgers his first year as a wide receiver one de facto when Jordy went out, like his emergence now is incredible what he's done. He checks all the boxes, obviously, out of Fresno State. Big, outside, can play inside, catches everything. He had Aaron Rodgers throwing him the ball, which didn't hurt. But for me, and I thought about Tyreek Hill because of he's kind of a Steve Smithy kind of guy, a little bit smaller and faster, but he's not there have been smaller wide receivers who have flourished, but I see him as a better version of Steve Smith, much faster, obviously. I think it's Jamar Chase. And the reason why I think it's Jamar Chase is I talk a lot on this podcast about players who are effortless in space, who it could be Gronk, even though he was kind of a little bit more cumbersome. I talk a lot about Lamar Jackson, obviously, Adam Thielen in space, in Cooper Kupp when they're not as fast. Jamar Chase has a gear in space while being big that I don't know if any other receivers have in the NFL. Mm-hmm. What he does, he runs all the routes, he does everything, he catches everything in the red zone territory. Him and Joe Burrow, have a special connection there, obviously, with the history from college. But the most effortless top-tier wide receiver playing this game is Jamar Chase. It's just so if you're going to look at style points and you're going to look at things like that, it's the dictionary definition of elite wide receiver is Jamar Chase. And I think it's if I'm going to start one and he's going to get wide receiver target, if he's going to get wide receiver one targets, a bountiful amount, I see Justin Jefferson. I get it. He puts up 3 for 30s at times. He didn't last year, but Jamar Chase, and Jamar Chase does also, but I would take Jamar Chase.
Okay. Well, I think that's fair. And I think it's crazy, man. There are so many good wide receivers. I mean, we didn't even mention Tyreek Hill. We didn't even mention Stephon Diggs. I mentioned AJ, but we didn't even mention Cooper Kupp. He had nearly 2,000 yards receiving. So, I mean, there are just so many good wide receivers. I think you could take any pick and really be all right. But, for me, Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, probably my top two. I think there may be a little bit of fanboy in me, and I may throw A.J. Brown in there. A.J. Brown, I think A.J. Brown's best is the best in the NFL on his best day, everybody's best stacked on their best. I'll take A.J. Brown, but I think that you get the best of Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase pretty much every single time. With that in mind, though, we are going to close off today's show. It's been a tumultuous show. It's been a little up and down, but we got it together for you guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed a Thursday edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. Make sure that you come back tomorrow. Your boy Q and Chris Carter will be breaking down all the biggest news in the NFL. But that's going to do it for us today. Stay safe out there. Start your weekend early. It is Thursday. A drink to that.